Hello, happy plein air painters, and welcome to week 2. So, if you're watching this, it is after our Zoom session, and we've chatted about your beautiful photos that you took from your walk or your virtual walk. And we've selected one or two of those, and now the fun stuff starts. So this week we're going to be taking the photo that you narrowed down to, the one that you want to focus on, and we're going to be removing things that don't support the story or the focal point of the artwork. The most effective way to do this, of course, is by creating thumbnail line drawings. And that's what we'll be doing this week. And I've talked about this before in our classes. This is that foundation that we want to build before we pick up our paints and our brushes and we start painting. It's really important. If you don't have a solid foundation, there's a good chance that the painting is going to fail. So what you want to be doing this week is looking and identifying the large shapes. Sometimes artists use the squinting method where you kind of like squint your eyes, sort of, and what that does effectively is it blurs out the detail so that you're only focusing on the large shapes. I know when we talk with other artists and we're talking about what we're doing and that kind of thing, and people will say, well, I'm painting a horse, or I'm painting flowers, or I'm painting trees, or after a while, when you start painting on a regular basis and creating art on a regular basis, you come to realize that the subject is really secondary to everything, and that the composition, which is how the objects, the shapes, are placed on the page, that is like number one. So it doesn't matter if you're painting a bunch of rocks or a bunch of beautiful stallions. The composition needs to be great. If you read the written part that I also provided, you know that I suggest using your photo in either Photoshop or the free online photop.com and editing it so that it's in black and white. And what this does is it takes away all that extra information that you don't need right now at this point, which is all the color, and it simplifies it down into shapes. And it's much easier, at least for myself, I find it's much easier to see these shapes when that color information is taken out. You'll be able to see the shapes of the trees and the shapes, how the bushes make their shapes, that kind of thing. We're going to take you now, I'm going to take you in, and we're going to look at some sketches that I did this week, and I'm going to go through them in Photoshop and show you where the big shapes are and what you should be looking for. So here we are. We've got our sketchbook out, and we're going to start drawing in the boxes. And these boxes should be the same scale as your final painting, so that when you go to transfer your image, it's easy to do because you've already got it to the correct. Here's my first thumbnail, and as you can see, I moved the tree on the left into the composition a little bit more. I've done a lot of simplification, taken out a lot of the trees, just did 3 main ones, the big large one, and then the couple bushes in the front. This is the very simplest composition that you could come up with this type of photograph. And in this particular sketch, I didn't even include the tree line in the back. Let's go on to the next one. A little bit of variation here. I've moved the tree over a little bit more, lining up to the thirds, and I have changed that mid-ground line to actually move away in the distance, and that will help add some depth. If you look at the original photo, it's pretty flat and square across that middle section, so we really want to change that around to make it a little bit more interesting and move the lines around. Here we go with our third sketch. Again, I'm moving the tree actually down and in even further This creates a nice foreground object. I've moved the two little bushes in the front again. So those three objects almost form a V that points us into the painting. And then to reflect that V in the background, I've actually made more of a U shape in that background area. And that again will draw the viewer into the painting. And here's our fourth sketch. This time I decided to use the tree as a framing tool, so I'm just using the branches going across. That will help to frame and also moves the eye from the bottom right across to the top right and back down again. So it kind of keeps the eye going and almost in a circular motion. And then that circular motion again is reflected in the hills. I've got a hilly area in the front and two hilly areas into the background. Hi again. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways that you can place the shapes on your page when you're working out your composition. And I purposely picked a photo that really didn't have a whole lot of excitement going on in it, just to show you how you can take something that's fairly unremarkable and make it work as a composition. So this is, again, the 4 sketches that we just showed you. Of these 4, so to create that harmony, the visual harmony, and to get the viewer into that painting, it's a matter of arranging your shapes in such a manner that it invites the viewer into your painting, has them move around the painting, and also keeps them in the painting as long as possible. So I would say of these 4, my favorites are probably these bottom 2. And the reason being that these 2 keep your attention much longer. Kind of, this one here keeps the viewer going around here because you've got shapes and angles that are pointing in a circular way. This one is angular. So you've got angles going in and out and around. And this again keeps the viewer in. So either one of these, I think I'm going to move on to and work on for our week 3. So I'm excited to see what you come up with this week. I'd like you to do about 8 to 10 sketches. Line drawings. Don't put any values in them at this point, just line. So you're looking at shapes, big shapes. Don't include little things. And don't be afraid to move things around. That's the whole idea of building the composition. And you'll know when you look at it which ones are working and which ones aren't working. And of course, if you have any questions, please send me an email. You can send me a text as well. And otherwise, I'll see you on during our Zoom meeting. See you then.